Oh, here's one for you guys. So I was talking to Ariel Helwani yesterday. I was a guest. I got to go on his show. I genuinely enjoy visiting with Ariel Helwani. Side note, but when I was on there, he asked me my opinion for December 11th. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm live on his show. That date means nothing to me. He might have said December 10th. The point is he throws out a pay-per-view date in December that I know nothing about. I said, Ariel, back up. What are you talking about? He says, well, the UFC is looking to make Stipe versus Jones, and they're going to put it on that date. I said, all right, well, what's the holdup? We've been told about this fight for a long time. What do you mean they're looking to do it? He goes, well, hold on, because what they want to do Jones versus Ngannou on that date. If they can't get Francis, then that's where Stipe comes in. Now, I had never heard that. I had never heard that prior. Guys, I haven't heard it since. I read the Junkies and the Manias and the Elbows and the Comms and the BJ Penns. I read all this stuff. I haven't seen this anywhere. Do you guys know what I'm even talking about? So let's try to rework this as best we can. We know that Francis Ngannou is hurt. Now, that was a while ago, but Francis hasn't done a great job of updating us. He hasn't done a great job of letting us know where he's at. Somebody ran into Francis and said he was about 300 pounds. That's very relevant. If Francis is 300 pounds, and I'm sure it's an amazing looking 300 pounds, my point being though, right, it's calories in versus calories out. If you're training and you're active, Francis at 300 pounds, it just tells you maybe he isn't fully back. That's a rumor and that's a speculation at best, but that's what we have to go on. We don't get a lot of information about the champ. And this was only 2 weeks ago. 300-pound Francis, 2 weeks ago, which tells us an out-of-shape Francis, which would make perfect sense for a guy that can't get in the gym and do what he wants to do because he's nursing a knee injury. Nothing to see here, but that's very different than Francis coming back to what would be the biggest match of his life. And by the way, where are we at, guys? We're almost to September. You got all of September and October and November. You don't have all 3 months, 3.5 months training camp for a guy that's completely healthy in Jon Jones, who has just been waiting, basking in the glow and preparing for this opportunity. It's a lot to bite off. Fine. That's what you do when you're heavyweight champion. Fine. I'm just setting the table for you. We also know that Francis's deal is up in December. There was a press conference. Kevin Iole said to Francis, my understanding is your specific contract will elapse in December. Is that right? And Francis acknowledged it and said, yes. So December 10th, I'm just bringing it to you. I mean, we're getting down to D-Day there. We're getting down to Francis can outrun this thing, and apparently he's free. Apparently when that date comes, there's not a right standard in these agreements, and you'd have a non-exclusive period, a non-negotiation, you have a matching period. The way Iole formed the question and the way my ears chose to interpret it, which could be a problem, is come someday in December, whatever this Tyson Fury business and Francis and going off is free to do. So if we're to get Francis and we're getting to December, which would mean, one, that his knee gets to be good, right? We get to be mad about this contract stuff. We get to do that. We have to show grace when a human being is hurt. And then you're talking about putting him opposite Jon Jones. Now, do you guys want that? You're thinking yes. You're thinking, Chael, of course we want that. But hold on, because if you don't get that, let's say that we get parts of that. Number one, that Francis is healed. That would be the number one good news. Great. Number two would be that Francis gets a contract redone with the UFC. So let's say we get those parts of it, but we don't get Francis versus Jones on that date. It would mean that we get Stipe versus Jones, which means you get Stipe versus Jones prior to you getting Francis versus Jones. So that's what I'm asking you. Because there's a big problem. Jones, Francis, massive. Jones coming off of a loss versus Francis, different story. So would you take the risk? If Jones goes down to Stipe, your big dream match of Ngannou versus Jones might go up in smoke. And, Michael Bisping weighed in on this. I got to give him credit. 2 months ago, he came out and said, keep Stipe on the side, wait as long as you have to preserve Jones versus Ngannou as Jones's first match at heavyweight. And it was silly when he said it, but I remembered it. Then a couple of days went by, which turned into weeks, which has turned into months, and it looks more and more like Bisping called it correctly. But I'm asking you, Because that three-way dance works. That three-way dance is going to play out. How they're going to do that round robin, like you could put Stipe in there with Francis right now. Great, true trilogy fight. Stipe put on 20 pounds of muscle. That story is going to be very compelling. We know Stipe can do it because he's already done it. Francis has been sidelined a little bit, which maybe brings him down. I mean, that story just works, for sure. Stipe would have the right to that opportunity, and nobody's disagreed with that. So the question isn't how you want to see these fights, or even are you going likely to get to see these fights. I'm asking you the order. What order do you want? The way Ariel worded it for me yesterday was that they have the date and they are going to do a heavyweight championship. Whether it's an interim or it's an undisputed is up for grabs. And we know the three players, but of those three, one of them sits out. That sounds great to me. I really like that. By the way, any way that you want to do it, I would love to know that Francis's knee is fine. Whatever he decides to go on and do, right? That's a completely separate conversation from anything that you have. That would say that it was. If Dana White, Hunter Campbell, they get this thing worked out, they get Francis under contract, now you start dreaming, now you start thinking pretty big. Look, there's a big match coming up, guys. A couple of weeks. Ciryl Gane versus Tuivasa is a big match. Tuivasa wins. If Tuivasa can win, because skill-wise, right, and I always sound like I'm not complimenting Tuivasa. I don't love when I say these words. He's not very good. Tuivasa is not very good as far as skills compared to other guys, including Ciryl. When you want to talk about the X's and O's, the ins and outs, the understanding, being polished, but he is a street fighter. Tuivasa has got heart and guts, and his skills are increasing leaps and bounds. I mean, you go back 5 fights on Tuivasa and then go back 4, 3, 2, and what you are going to, this guy, right, it's just a matter of time. That time could have already come and we don't know it. That's happening in the practice room. That's happened with his coaches and his teammates. That's happening in training camps that we're not exposed to. We know that it's coming. We know the potential. We see that quick rise. Maybe he's already there, but going out and getting a win over Ciryl Gane, sky's the limit for Tuivasa. You do whatever you want with him. I believe he's ranked number 4 in the world right now. He should be ranked number 3, but I believe the ranking, he's ranked number 4. I'm sharing with you a win over the former champion who just went 25 minutes with the Predator. We're having a whole different conversation. And when you have a guy that it will go get in a dogfight, first round's about who's better. It's about who's better, and I'm saying Tuivasa's not very good. That's real for 5 minutes. Then you're in the tough guy business. Tuivasa's a tough guy. So it's one of these spots where heavyweight is changing very quickly. I notice that Tom Aspinall is staying relatively quiet. I think that Tom thinks that he doesn't have a right to be barking while he's nursing an injury. I disagree with that. And everywhere I go in private, and we talk about the heavyweight class, somebody always brings up Tom Aspinall because the potential is there and the future is there. I'd like to hear him be a little bit louder. And while Ariel shared this with me, guys, I'm going back a day, but I had never heard about it. I haven't heard about it since. I have not read headlines anywhere since about this December 10th or 11th date and that they're going to do a heavyweight prize. But Ariel's always right. Ariel never gets these things wrong. So something's going down and something is brewing there, but now you're talking about hurting people's feelings. If you're trying to book Jon versus Francis, but you're willing to make it Stipe, now you're hurting somebody's feelings. Well, you going to go to the dance with me? That's the guy that you asked said no. I mean, it's one of these spots, and I'm all for the drama. I'm all for it. But I still want to ask you. I feel very confident in telling you that you're going to get those fights, that you've got a true round robin, that nobody else is breaking into that, nobody's trying to break into that, nobody's even on the potential of it, save the example that Tuivasa beats up Ciryl. Well, all of a sudden, you do have another player in there. Curtis Blades somehow is left out of this. I don't get that. I think that Curtis should be speaking up. I think that if this is true and they've got those 3 guys and they're trying to get 2 guys, that Curtis Blades should be punching that door in. But they don't appear to be doing that. So I just want to come back to the original question, started on a speculation that I got from Ariel Helwani. In December, interim or undisputed championship, would you rather see Jones versus Stipe right out of the gate? Or would you rather see the Predator versus Jones?